I do want to move off of this topic because I
Mm.
really, really want to talk about, I think, the hottest topic in WWE, which is the return of Bray Wyatt. Um, so I did really want to get your thoughts on this because, like you said, you've been watching WWE for quite some time. For me, this is the first time I've really got to see a big reveal. Haven't seen one before. Like I missed the Cody Rhodes one at WrestleMania, but there wasn't a lot of build up for that, right?
No, that was a real surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm curious, like in what you've seen in these kinds of reveals. And I know they did a similar type of tease for the Fiend, but Bray Wyatt was already on the roster at that time. Like, where do you feel like that fits all time when it comes to WWE reveals? Because it started with the White Rabbit QR codes. It was really mysterious, right? And it kept going and going and going, and then it finally you got for me, which was a fantastic reveal. I've watched that reveal like four times. I then and you got the whole world in your head. It gets stuck in my head constantly. For me, I think it was done like so brilliantly with how they teased it with the QR codes and things like that. And like it got to me, you got such a good payoff because the reveal was fantastic. And then we can discuss a little bit his appearance on Friday. So what do you think about the reveal itself, like and the lead up to it, and where do you feel like it fits all time in the WWE?
I loved the reveal. I thought it was really cool. I loved his ability to. I love that they allowed him to pay homage to Brody Lee. I don't know if you. I talked to you
Yeah,
about
the
this,
the
but they
door, right? It was the door.
the door. One of the masks of Sister Abigail was very similar to a mask that Brody Lee wore. Um, I think it was beautiful. It was a really good homage that side of things. Uh, the just the reveal. It was a fun way to break down, and I had a lot of ups and downs myself of, is it
Mhm.
gonna be Bray Wyatt or is it not gonna be Bray Wyatt? And I wanted to believe it was, but I think I was just scared of the disappointment. I didn't want it to not be him and then be
I
disappointed,
think a
because
lot of fans were like that. Yeah,
there was a lot of talk of Bray for months. Like, we've heard it for since what,
on a
May,
cell.
I think. So there's been a lot of talk for a really long time, and then you have to consider someone. There's always a reason why someone was released. So if they were released, there's always potential that the company might not want them back. So there's always something like that running through your head. But I'm a little off on a tangent here. Let me just say though, the reveal itself, it was great. It was really well done. Just having him come out with that lantern, pull the mask off, blow the lantern out, end. It was great
Mhm.
because it still gives you some, I want to see more.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
I don't like I didn't like what they did the next night. So on Raw, where they were kind of like, oh yeah, Bray Wyatt, and they gave you the feel that he might be there, but
Mhm.
they just showed what happened, and I didn't like that, but I loved that he came back on Friday. Um, we'll get to that in a second, but you asked me a second piece was where I kind of like sit this return, and where I kind of feel this fit into all the returns in the past. My favorite return, this is gonna sound biased. My favorite return of all time was Chris Jericho in 2007 on Monday Night Raw. From, I think, a 3-year hiatus where he was with
Wow.
Fozzy and doing his band and everything. We honestly thought he was never coming back at that point. He just kind of
Mhm.
went into his music career, started going into some acting, and they did a very similar. And I think I said this to you that I got some Chris Jericho esque feel from that reveal, and they didn't have QR codes at that time. I don't think it was a thing, but there
No.
were little pieces, little vignettes, little puzzle pieces throughout. And if you want, I'm sure you could YouTube and find some of those things. But and they had happened for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you
Mhm.
know, we got to the point where we realized it was going to be Chris Jericho, but when was he coming? And he came back, and the clock struck, and you got to see the letters and the puzzle change into "Save Us, Y to J,"
Mhm.
and you realized it was him. And then after that happened, it went dark. The music hit. Chris Jericho's music hit. The pyro hit, and here he is standing in his infamous pose, the Y2J pose at the front of the entrance, under the Titantron. And I don't know, I talk about this and this still gives me goosebumps, like just remembering this. I've watched his return at least 30 times over my life. I just think it's one of the coolest returns I ever seen. It was against Randy Orton, who was in the ring at the time and was one of the biggest superstars growing in the company at the time. And he was a big part of putting Randy over at that time too. So I think there was just so much to it that was just so creative, and I felt a lot of that with Bray's creativity and the way that Bray did things, and I thought that was really cool. So I mean, there's been some great returns. I mean HBK, Shawn Michaels back in 2002, Jericho in
Edge.
2007, Edge in 2021, 2020, I think, in the Royal Rumble. Undertaker back in 2004 when he dropped that American Badass and went to, back to Dead Man Undertaker, and was coming against Kane, and I think there's just been so many good returns. Triple H's return back in 2002 after his quadricep tear, like, you name it. There's so many different returns that you can think of. Bray's has to be up there. I mean, top 5. I can't pinpoint.
Yeah.
I can't pinpoint a number, but like it's got to be one of the coolest, at least within this last era, this last 10 years. Probably one of the coolest I've seen, for sure.
Well, I think this one's incredibly unique too because I'm sure you saw this. I joked with you like this is what happens when you bridge Marvel and WWE. So WWE did hire a Marvel writer who actually before the Fiend was released pitched to WWE making a Fiend movie, and his name is escaping me at the moment. But he was working with Bray Wyatt, I'm assuming, on this return, which gets me excited for because so this person's title is now director of long term storytelling.
In WWE?
Yes. So it makes me kind of happy to see like he'll be handling the bloodline stuff. He'll be handling probably the returns of. We'll see about Orton, who apparently his back's pretty bad. But anyway, Orton, we have Rhodes coming back, right? So I'm actually really excited to see what he's going to do with other returns. I mean, like Brave was always going to be exceptional because he's an exceptional
It's
person.
Bray. His creativity is there, so I think it's cool because you have kind of a collaboration between this individual from Marvel and someone we know, being Bray, being so creative. And I've watched Bray since he was Husky Harris back in NXT,
Mm,
and his growth, like, I don't know if you've seen kind of Bray and the Wyatt family and
mm.
some of that, but his growth in WWE has been tremendous, and to see where he is now, uh it's just amazing. Um i i i, I gotta say, like, over the last 6 months or so, since there's been some new returns and stuff,
Mm,
they've been pretty good. Like, they've either been
mm.
really surprising, like Cody. Like, we all speculated it, but you just never know, right? These are rumors from companies and Meltzer and things like that these people might be coming back. But until you hear that music hit, you don't know that person's coming back. So without a vignette, a return like that's cool. But like Edge's return back when he was doing the promos and the vignettes, that was really
Right?
cool.
Mm.
Bray's was really cool. I think Cody's so much of a face, he doesn't need a huge vignette kind of building
He won't.
experience.
Yeah,
He won't.
yeah.
But these have been really cool ideas, and I'm really excited to see kind of these vignettes that have, like, just let's give those two, Edge and Bray, these kind of things.
Mm.
This reminds me of like those early 2000s, mid 2000s kind of days when WWE was really doing a lot of those storytelling vignettes, and like I think storytelling is such a big part of this industry. It's amazing. Like, hey, it's great when you have a return like Johnny Gargano, for instance, like that.
Yeah.
It's
Out of
surprising and it's
nowhere.
cool. And Candice LeRae, like a couple weeks later, like those are cool. But when you have storytelling build up to it, and you have and Bray also has so much background, right? They gotta do something like this for when Randy returns. Like, they have to.